Monday, 12th of June 2023. This is another one of that rip the band-aid off Skidmarks. And I have a few topics that I want to handle, and I'm not going to do it in one Skidmark. I'm going to do it as a series basically, because otherwise this stuff is going to be too long. This one, and the main core of what I want to talk about is around the statement that I heard over the weekend, where the guy said South Africa is actually not a country, it's a region. The same as when you talk about Western Europe or Eastern Europe, where you talk about Asia. South Africa is a region. Now many people will be frowning on it, but the most important indicator is the fact that we've got 11 official languages. That is the clue. And someone asked me, how did the white regime manage to keep the country together? How? And after a lot of thinking and walking around and mulling it over in my head, and by the way, there are people that want to know why I do so many of the Skidmarks in English. The reason why I do these types of Skidmarks in English is because there's a broader audience that needs to be able to understand what I'm saying. When I do things that are specific to my cultural group, I do it in Afrikaans. And this topic, I feel a lot of people, the more people who see it, the better opportunity there is for the message to get through. To come back to the point, the guy asked me, how did the apartheid regime manage to keep the region together as a country? And the primary reason was the fact that the leadership under apartheid understood very well that to have successful institutions, you need clever, well-qualified management. And that is the trick. If you think back about the apartheid years, university you had the degree B Juris and B Proc. The B Juris degree was mainly aimed at the civil servants, for those guys that want to become magistrates and prosecutors. So the B Juris degree was there for the government services. And you had the B Proc. And B Proc was aimed at those guys that wanted to go and practice as private lawyers and law practitioners. Universities offered degrees like B Mil, which is a bachelor's degree in military things. There was degrees for government administration. And in the government setup, there were certain levels that you could not get past in promotions if you did not have the qualifications. There were diplomas that were required for certain positions. And think about this. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 80s, private hospitals did not really exist. Yeah, there were a few private clinics for really very special services, but you didn't see private hospitals like you see today. You didn't see it. Why was that? Because the government had a system where they gave bursaries to deserving students to study. And it was full bursaries, covered your hostel and your academics, everything. And sometimes there were even pocket money included. And on top of that, having a bursary like that also guaranteed that on university holidays, you would have a job. They use you for a clerk or for whatever type of jobs they have there. But you worked for those 3 weeks or 6 weeks and you got paid for it. The students from my generation, all of us, during the holidays, the long holidays, we worked for pocket money for the next academic period. That's how it worked. But this bursaries had another big thing in it. It was very difficult for you to get out of that bursary once you've completed your degree. Your only option was to go and work for the state. 1 year for every year you had a bursary. So if you did a 4-year degree, you had to work for the state for 4 years. Yes, there was opportunity to buy yourself out, but it was at a hell of a price. Why was that? By doing that, the state ensured that they had a steady flow of professionals in their service. Engineers, doctors, architects, accountants, lawyers, all of that. Professional people, qualified people that was manning the administration of this country. That was the magic trick that the white regime had. Compare that to what you see today. Compare that. Think about this. In the 80s, the Eskom board was 7 people. 7 people. 6 engineers and 1 accountant. That's it. Look at it today. You see people in the government service that has a matric only. That's it. A dodgy matric on top of that. A 30% pass matric. And they just don't have the mental capacity or capabilities to run departments and things like that. Let's come back to the hospitals. A medical degree is 7 years. So for every bursary that the government gave to medical students, the government had a guarantee that for 7 years they will have a qualified doctor in their service. Private hospitals was something that nobody even talked about. Presidents, ministers, everybody went to the state hospitals when they were sick. The state hospitals were rendering services comparable to the best in the world. I knew a guy that came to South Africa. He qualified as a doctor in Germany. And then he came to South Africa for practical experience. And I spoke to him. He was working at Briekmerke Hospital. And I said to him, look, you're from Germany, why the hell do you come here to learn what? And he said, you will not understand what I'm going to say to you. But the reality is, here in South Africa, over a weekend, I handle more knife wounds than I would see in a year, maybe 2 years in Germany. That is why I'm here, because I want to be a trauma specialist. That was in the late 70s. I'm a young student, I listen, I hear on these things, and you don't really pay attention to it. But because we were living in a society where things worked. Today, we have a problem. The bulk of the population that is driving the narrative on social media are part of what I call the Sasa Generation. They do not understand that a hospital can be functional. They have no clue about that. All they see is dilapidation and struggling and chaos wherever they go. We also had the same problem with the technical institutions in the government service. You've got a guy that was appointed because he's connected in charge of a department that leans heavily on engineering, like the Department of Water Affairs. Things like that. In our faces, every day, is the dilapidation of the health services, the dilapidation of the police services, the dilapidation of the judicial services. Those things are in our faces. But think about what is happening outside the public view. The departments that are all form part of a well-operating government machine. The Department of the Deeds Office, the Master's Office. Those are vital operations and organizations to a growing modern economy. Those things are not working anymore. But you don't deal with those things every day. Until the day comes that you need a deed. Then you realize, oh shit. Or you land in the situation that you have to get deceased family members' estate sorted out. Pah, none of that. This Sasa generation do not have any first-hand experience of an operational government service, and the bulk of them are extremely poorly qualified. They've got a matric that is worthless. No country in the world recognizes our matric. But here in our own country, the bulk of the commercial and industrial economy doesn't recognize that matric. They see that guy as unqualified, unskilled. That is the realities. So the Sasa generation doesn't have a point of reference to the things that they are talking about. They are suffering and struggling, and then you've got another problem. Hundreds of these students, they go and they achieve degrees in humanities degrees. I call them tree climbing degrees. Those things are absolutely worthless. How many human resources officials does a company need? Maybe one. Maybe. But there are 100 of them studying that degree. And I heard a black guy over the weekend in a TV show, and he was complaining about 800 of them that qualified and none of them are employed. And he's very upset about the fact that they couldn't get employment. But not once did he refer to the damn qualification they've got. It's useless tree climbing qualifications. And so, if I say South Africa is not a country, it's a region, I say that, but history shows us clever, qualified management can make a thing like that work. Now, on this day in 2023, we just simply have to accept the government has collapsed. Nothing is working. What do you expect from ministers? Look at that cabinet. Show me one of those guys there that has ever owned, built and owned a successful business. Not one. But yet you expect him to be in charge of building the economy. You expect the Minister of Police to protect you. He knows nothing. He doesn't have it. I mean, in the old days, you could go to university and get a B.Pol degree. That doesn't exist anymore. Cadre deployment was the toxic injection the ANC brought to this country. That was the toxic injection. with cadre deployment, the ANC that claims to be your liberators, they infected the government system. And after 25 years, you can see the result. The government service has died. There is here and there remnants and illusions of something that's supposed to work. I've had messages from supporters that complains that they haven't received their Sasa payments for June. We're already at the 12th. That is the beginning of the collapse. I don't care how militant you are. I want you to imagine for one moment you wake up in South Africa where no Sasa payments are made. Think about that one. And it's a reality. It is coming our way. The fact of the matter is, there is people that claims to be in charge of this country. What is the big difference between the ANC government and the apartheid government? The most visible difference. Forget about all the blacks that has been appointed and all that. For you as a citizen. Point number one, police services gone. Here and there are good policemen in the police services, but they are not a good unit. Same, the army has been destroyed. What we have here now as an army is a bloody joke. That army cannot defend themselves against looters. So, the apartheid regime had an incredible security system behind it to maintain law and order. The stupid ANC did not take note from other dictators in other parts of the world to see that for a dictator to stay in charge, he needs an army. He needs a police force. They don't have it. Why? Stupid. But the citizens are suffering. So I'm going to end this now. Just tell you. South Africa is a region, not a country. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.